Good afternoon and welcome to our program. My name is Marlene Yahalom, and I'm honored to be the Director of Education for the American Society for Yad Vashem. This year, we commemorate Yom HaShoah v'Hagvura to honor the bravery, the heroism, and to remember the martyrdom that existed for the Jewish nation during the Holocaust. Yom HaShoah was established in 1953 by a mandate from the Israeli parliament, and this is the same year that Yad Vashem was established to teach the world to remember, commemorate, and not forget what happened to the Jewish people during the Holocaust. We remember the tragedies, the bravery, and the heroism. In our education work at Yad Vashem, our approach is to teach the world the human face of Holocaust victims. We don't want the world just to remember any numbers, statistics, or methods of mass murder. We want to honor the Jewish life that existed before the war, during the war, and after the war, and the bravery and the rebuilding of the Jewish people after this horrific tragedy. We thought it would be very appropriate to share with you the story of one family, to go through their life cycle and their journey of how they existed in Europe before the Holocaust happened, during the Holocaust, and how they survived and rebuilt their lives in the United States. This family is my family, but it could easily be anybody else's family who was at the wrong place in the wrong time from 1939 to 1945. I put together artifacts from my family that we were lucky enough to have after the war. Not only did my 4 grandparents and 2 parents survive, but the artifacts did as well. So I'm going to go through these artifacts with you to share with you the timeline of their use and existence and how they were used in my family at different periods in their life. I am the daughter of 2 Holocaust survivors, Judy and Asi Warshawski, and I am the granddaughter of 4 Holocaust survivors. Esther and Harry Rosemarin are my mother's parents, and Rosa and Isaac Warshawski are my father's parents. I was very fortunate to grow up with 2 parents and 4 grandparents, but even more so to grow up with these 6 people, given the horrors that they went through in their life and the good fortune they had to survive and rebuild their lives afterwards. My mother's family, the Rosemarin family, are from Poland, from the cities of Będzin and Sosnowiec. My mother is one of 8 siblings. 4 survived, 4 were killed during the Holocaust. The 4 children who survived are Mendel Rosemarin, Layusha Rosemarin, Basha Rubin, and my mother, Judy Warshawski. The 4 siblings who did not survive are Aryeh Rosemarin, Miriam Rosemarin, Devorah Rosemarin, and Hillel Rosemarin. My father's family, the Warshawski family, are originally from Chenstochova, where my grandfather, Isaac Warshawski, is from, and the city of Auschwitz in Poland, where my grandmother is from, Rosa Warshawski. They had 2 sons, Chaim Yechiel Warshawski and Asi Warshawski. My father's older brother, Chaim Yechiel Warshawski, did not survive. The artifacts I have will present to you their stories and what they did before the war, the lives that they lived, and how they sustained to survive and rebuild their lives after the war. One of the books in my grandfather's full Gemara set that he had with him his entire life. He had this with him in hiding in Belgium. Him and my grandmother were in hiding in Belgium, and he used the Gemara throughout his entire life. He actually studied Daf Yomi pretty much every day until the age of 92, and he passed away at the age of 94. This is a set of tefillin, the shel yad and shel rosh, that my grandfather used every day of his life, of course, except for Shabbat and holidays. And the inside part of the tefillin, the part that's handwritten from portions of the Torah, were given to him by his grandfather. Only the cases had to be replaced from time to time. Now you will see a photo of a silver Shabbat candelabra, some Kiddush cups, 4 shot glasses, and a Kos Eliyahu. These items were in my grandparents' home their entire life. The candelabra was given to my grandmother when my grandparents got engaged in 1924. She used it consistently throughout her life. She passed away in 1984. The Kiddush cups and the shot glasses were used. They were in my grandparents' home throughout their married life. And even after my grandmother died, my grandfather used all of these things at the appropriate holidays and on Shabbat. The 4 shot glasses they received as a gift when they got engaged, and they drank a l'chaim from them. Now you will notice a matzah cover. It's also in a photo. This matzah cover was made by my grandmother for my grandfather when they got engaged, and it was used every Passover until my grandmother died in 1984. My grandfather gave it to me when my grandmother died, and rather than having it only to look at 1 week of the year during Pesach, I decided to frame it, and it's hanging in my home. I also have a Haggadah that my grandfather used every year at the Seder. It's a Haggadah that's in German. It was published in 1935, and it was one of the few Haggadot that my grandfather had at the Seder every year. He was very careful to give as many explanations as possible for the Haggadah, and the Seders were always fascinating to listen to when he would lead them. They had one son, Chaim Yechiel Warshawski, who was born in 1925. He was killed in Auschwitz, but we have some artifacts to represent his lifetime. This is a picture of him. It is his passport picture, and according to my grandmother, it was the only time that she remembered him taking off his kippah, because he always walked around with his kippah. This is a siddur that he used, and this is a Tanakh that belonged to him. His name is in here. The Tanakh is from 1935. It was published in Poland, and there's even an inscription for him. I think it was a bar mitzvah present, but we have this from him. He was riding with my grandmother on a train, and there was a random identity check. So German officers pulled him out of the train, and he was deported to Auschwitz. He did not acknowledge that he knew my grandmother, and my grandmother always felt that this saved her life, because he didn't want the German officers to see that they were together, because they would have figured out she was Jewish too, and she would have been deported with him. My father was spared because my grandparents put him in a monastery in Belgium, Chamois. When he went into hiding, this was the photograph of him on his identity papers. The back of the photograph has the name of the part of his disguise, Roger Jourdain. This was a boy in his class in Belgium. In a minute, you'll see a photograph of his 6th grade diploma, because he finished 6 years of school in Belgium, and he graduated from there. After that is when he went into hiding. This is a dictionary that was on his bedside table. It's a German-French dictionary, and it helped complete the disguise for him, because, again, the name Roger Jourdain was in the book. We also have kind of souvenirs from his bar mitzvah celebration that we have from before he went into hiding. This is from a tea service that my grandparents had, and it was used at whatever party they made in their home celebrating my father's bar mitzvah. Now we have a very interesting family photo from Poland. This photo was identified in the Jewish Historical Institute in Warsaw in the 1990s, and the caption on the photo was "A Jewish family celebration in between the 2 wars." The person seeing this photo thought it would be interesting to find out who it belonged to, so he got a copy of the photo from the curator, and brought it back to New York. My uncle Jack Rosemarin was able to identify every person in the photo, and it turns out that the photo is the family celebration was a Sheva Brachot celebration for cousins of mine, and the picture was taken in my great-grandparents' dining room in Benjin. My great-grandparents were Perla Gittler Rosemarin and Mordechai Rosemarin, and pretty much everyone in the photo is a relative. Of the some 45 people in the photo, only 8 survived. But of these 45 people, 7 guests were from families of 9 people or more. And of these 7 families, there were no survivors. Now we're jumping in the timeline to after the war. My mother, her experiences during the war were in forced labor camps. And when she was liberated, she reunited with my grandparents and 3 other siblings, the ones who survived, of course. And this photo is of my mother in a DP camp where she was. My mother's family was in Germany from 1950 to 1954 until they came to the United States. So here's a photo of my mom with the group sitting on the grass, and she studied for her high school equivalency diploma there. And there's just a page from her geometry notebook, which I thought would be interesting for you to see. So she tried to continue or restart her education to be ready for a better life once they came to the United States. My father did not spend the duration of the war in the monastery. He could not tolerate having to take communion and participate in the other religious ceremonies that were normal to take place there. So he was asked to leave very politely, but he was basically kicked out. And he joined the Belgian resistance, and it was a courier till the end of the war. When he returned home to his parents, my grandparents, he knew where they were hiding. And he had the dictionary with him and a blanket that my grandmother gave him to keep warm while he was a hidden child. He managed to save the dictionary that you just saw here. I don't know where the blanket is, but when my father was telling me bits and pieces of this part of his life, he told me that he actually never got to use the blanket because he felt that each child should use the blanket, each Jewish child should use the blanket. So every night they took turns, and another Jewish child got to sleep with the blanket, but he managed to come home with the blanket. So by 1954, both families, my Warshawski grandparents and Rosemarin grandparents, immigrated to the United States in October of 1954. And now you can see an engagement photo of my parents who got engaged in 1953 and got married in 1954. So this pretty much represents the artifacts that I have from my family before the war. I have more artifacts from my father's parents because they were in hiding and they were able to keep these objects with them. But it's interesting to me what they chose to keep with them is all the religious artifacts so they can continue and maintain their tradition and these important values in their life. And they actually use these things for the rest of their life in the United States. I do have one thing I would like to share with you. It is a calligraphy of Eshet Chayil that I bought from my grandmother, Rosa Warshawski, and I gave it to her in 1981. And she passed away in 1984, but my father shared with me that when I gave this to her, I mean, he told me this story after she died, that when I gave this gift to her, she was very touched and she felt extremely privileged to receive such a meaningful gift from a granddaughter because she never thought she would live to see her life rebuilt and really to see grandchildren appreciating the same values that she tried to maintain her whole life. So that's about it for the artifacts that we have. Our point was to show you again continuity and survival for Jews during the Holocaust, to give you some taste of a family's journey, to really share with you the human element of Holocaust survivors, those who survived and those who did not. And we'd like to dedicate this presentation to the memory of Aryeh Rosmarin, who is 15, Miriam Rosmarin, who is 12, Hillel Rosmarin, who is 6, Devorah Rosmarin, who is 4, and Chaim Yechiel Warshawski, who is 16. They are 5 of 1.5 million children, Jewish children who perished during the Holocaust, and 5 of 6 million Jews who perished during the Holocaust. May their memories and the memories of all 6 million victims be a source of inspiration for Jewish survival and Jewish continuity. Thank you very much.